Hello and welcome to Your Property Podcast. Today we've got back on the show John Howard. Hi John, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm okay, thank you very much. I suppose the fact I'm back on the show is probably a good sign, isn't it?
It has to be a good sign, right? Back raring to go. You can't keep away from these things.
Well, it's like property is a moving target. You know, things change and your situation changes and the cash flow changes and you have to keep with it, don't you?
Yes, you do. You have to keep changing with the times, whatever it kind of throws in your
Yeah.
way. And there's been lots that has been thrown in your way, our way, the past year or so. It's been very different since I was checking the last recording that we did. Last podcast was March 2022.
Was
So for anybody
it?
who wants, more of an introduction to John and who he is and everything, like just go back to that one, because that gives a really good overview. But it was interesting because we made some predictions back then about what was happening, and it hasn't quite fallen off the cliff as we thought it could have back then, the property markets. But a lot of things have changed. I suppose it depends what sector you're in. But you're most impacted by planning gain, development, and
Yeah.
larger projects. So how does it
Yes.
differ for you?
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Michelle. I mean, I've been given the nickname of the Grim Reaper now, which isn't very nice, because I'm always predicting, well, not always, but at the moment predicting things are going to get tougher, and I believe they will. I've survived 3 property recessions, and I can see this turning into a recession. I'm not saying it's going to be a very deep one, but what I would say is that everything takes longer than people think. I always think, we're coming into a tough time. We can start buying cheap property. Things are going to get easier, and they don't for a while. But I always look at it like a big boat. It takes a long time to stop and turn around and come in the other direction. And if you think something's going to take a year in terms of the market to sort of falter and to change, it's probably going to take 2.
Right.
And if you think it's 2, it's probably going to be 4. So for me, the madness of coming out of COVID and prices going up and all that business, we didn't get involved in any of that, thank goodness. And in a hot market, as I said before, I think in a hot market we struggle to make any money because people pay too much for everything.
Yeah.
So now this is our time, and this is our time, and it's the time for a lot of sensible people that have got a little bit of cash, perhaps, and have been sensible. And I think the next 12 months are going to be very tough. Now, of course, if you're doing HMOs and all that sort of stuff, is pretty safe. Let's be honest. There's a housing shortage, so you can't really go wrong on that side of things. Your income might have been affected by electricity bills and gas bills if you didn't have them all independently metered for the residents. And by the way, in the old days, that's what we did. Of course, we didn't have all this business where the landlord pays electricity bill. We had individual meters, and I don't sound old, but we started off at 5 pence pieces, then 10, then 50. And I remember sitting there on the floor counting all the 50 pence pieces, for the electricity. Of course, you could charge a profit on the electricity in those days. I can now, I don't know, because I haven't got any. Thank God I haven't got any HMOs, but not my scene. But it's funny how things come full circle, because now everyone's talking about these fancy meters, and we've just put some in actually in Warwickshire, where we bought a block of a country house in 12 flats last year. And stupidly, the landlord was paying all the heating and some of the electricity bills. Bonkers. So we put these fancy meters in for gas that allow us to then charge them whatever they've used. I don't know how it works, by the way. I haven't got a clue, Michelle.
Don't need to know.
No need to know. As long as someone else can do it for me. Yes.
And in terms of development, then things obviously, the prices are falling. We've got Lloyds and Santander at the moment predicting a 5 to 7% drop, and then recovering in 2025. That's what the banks are predicting at the moment. But what do you think is going to happen within the development market, where you've got these, the GDVs are going down? How do you make deals stack at the moment?
Well, if you know how to do that, let me know, Michelle, will you? No. So we've had, well, let's just go back a little bit. We've had the perfect storm. So if you've got interest rates doubling, if you've got property prices really dropping 10-15% from the optimistic valuations that agents give you, there's two lots of valuations. There's the optimistic ones you may give the bank, and your agent might agree with you because he or she wants the business. And then there's reality. So I trade in reality, and my reality is always 5 to 10% below what the agent initially says. Normally they end up agreeing with me somewhere along the line, because they want the business, and I say to them, look, just give it to me straight. And the way I do that sometimes is I say to them, price it to sell in 8 weeks. And that gives them the excuse to then say, well, if it's 8 weeks, you might need to have it at this price. So that I think is quite useful to know. So you've had build costs go up 30% over the last 3 years. That's now slowed down. To be honest with you, that's got more sensible. But it's what I call a perfect storm, and very few people can survive a perfect storm like that, where you've got a massive difference. If you started a project and it's taken you a long time to do it, you've probably got caught up with prices, interest rates doubling, and also costs going up dramatically as well. And very few people can survive that. And if you're one of them listening to this podcast, do not beat yourself up. Get whatever cash you can out and go again, because you've learned from mistakes and you're dealing in a totally different market this time around. So if you've done that and you get out the best you can, you might be able to rent some, sell some, whatever, get the bank sorted and move on. So that's the first thing I would say. From our point of view, we've tended to specialize in buying part finished sites. So these sites are where a bank have come in, taken off the developer, and then need to sell it at a forced sale value. And we've got 2 schemes in Scotland like that, one of 26,000 flats, one of 12. About to buy another one up in Scotland. Only took me 42 years to buy a deal in Scotland. Now I bought, nearly 3. And then we bought similar in Hungerford, Birmingham, and then we picked 1 or 2 quite nice sites up, which are conversions of people who desperately need the money, or it's a family situation where, because the money is being split 5 ways, a price reduction doesn't make that much difference to them. And I think if you identify the properties that you're able to buy at the moment, they're mainly off institutions, banks, where they can afford to take the hit. Anybody trying to buy a property off someone in a personal capacity, it's very difficult for them to accept the prices that they're worth. They normally take about a year to realise, most private individuals, that they won't get the price they thought they were going to get. And that's
so where are we in that year? We at the end of the year?
I think we're probably 6 months into it, I would say, in reality. And then they say, well, hell, we might as well move on. We've got to move. And of course, the other thing is, if they're, and it's not always the case, because you're probably buying vacant, or it's the problem, there's a problem with it anyway. But of course, if you actually own a property and you're buying another one, it doesn't matter what the market's doing. It doesn't matter, because you're going to benefit probably within that marketplace. So if you're selling one and buying another one, you sell a bit cheaper, but you buy a bit cheaper. And of course, if you're buying a bigger property, you're making more savings. So there's a way of spinning these things in everyone's favour, really, going forward.
And you mentioned before about you specialize in buying these larger projects that are part finished. I suppose for most people listening, that's probably out of their league, or instead of experience as well. So where do you think people can buy deals that are stacking? Like, let's say, in the next 6 months, is it going just through Rightmove or Property Filter, or is it on the portals, or do you think it's best to go through agents or try and go direct still if you can?
Yeah, I think, well, I think you try all those things. I mean, Rightmove's the retail the retail market. Why anybody wants to buy anything off Rightmove? Okay, you hear the story. Well, I nicked it off Rightmove, but it's highly unlikely. More likely now, to be fair, than it was before. So if you follow the price reductions, that's what I would be doing. The ones that have been on the market a year or so, they're the ones I'd be following, not the ones that just come on. Waste of time, because actually, if you're buying it, are you that lucky? Are you that clever? Or are you just paying too much money for it if it's just come on the market? Probably too much money. If you're in a tender situation and you know there's 4 other people want, or there's there's a situation where they have a date on it. You know, you put bids in by 12 noon on whenever. If you're the best bid at the moment, I would be very concerned. Why are you the best bid? You know, because do you know something everyone else doesn't? If that's the case, that's fantastic. If you know you can get planning and no one else thinks about that or whatever, that's great. If you've got an angle, but you know, to just be the outbid everybody, I would say you're probably paying too much, because don't forget, it's a falling knife. The market is falling. There is a saying, never catch a falling knife, of course, and wait and be patient. I struggle to do that, but you know, hopefully we've got the ability sometimes to get in and out of deals quite quickly, because in a falling market, unless you're looking long term, you do need to get out of these things relatively quickly, unless you're making a very, very large margin. Making a very large margin or waiting till the market recovers, that's fine. Yeah.
How do we know when the knife has fallen?
Well, that's a really good question, Michelle. I'm glad you asked me that. The main way of checking that, and it's a bit blurred at the moment, is the auction market, because the auction market is the barometer for the whole of the property market on the whole. So whatever happens in auctions happens in the rest of the market 6 to 9 months later. It's the cash and carry. So when you said where would you be buying deals, excuse me, then buying them at auction is probably one that, if you've got the money to do so, if you can organise yourself properly, then that's probably one of the best ways of buying a bargain. However, at the moment, interestingly, the auction market isn't doing too badly, just disappointingly for people like me and you, Michelle. So the simple properties are selling quite well. So the terrace houses that need refurbishing, which is a great way to start, of course, if you want to get into property developing in any shape or form. Buy a house, refurbish it, sell it. You learn so much about what you're doing, and you're not going to lose any money probably, and you're going to learn a lot on the job. Now, those types of properties are still going for quite good money, which is a bit disappointing, to be honest with you. I think that will change. A friend of mine, I mean, I used to own Auction House UK, as you know, and Brian Baxter, he's the chief auctioneer there. I was talking to him. They've just sold some commercial stuff for me, actually. And I was chatting to Brian, and he was saying that, they're turning down a hell of a lot of properties at the moment that are just overpriced for the auctions. Right. So, everything that's in an auction at the moment, the reserve will be priced right. The problem is, if you've got 2 or 3 people wanting to buy it, it'll go over the reserve. But you can be pretty confident that everything that's in an auction at the moment is very competitively priced, because they've had so much they can choose from. An auctioneer will not take properties that at the moment that are too much money, because they've got a massive choice of what they can take. When the market is tight and there's not much property around, they will take stuff that's overpriced, but at the moment they won't. So that's auctions. Of course, I've got a good book on auctions I wrote, haven't I, as well, Michelle? Yeah. Which we'll just plug that. Could be useful for someone.
We'll put the link in the show notes.
Thank you very much. So, yeah, auctions is the cash and carry. I say auctions is the cash and carry, and Rightmove and things like that are the retail, really.
Okay. And you've obviously come into contact with lots of people through the lots of mentees through your property elevator, and just through everything that you're doing with educating people, that whether that's online or in person.
Yeah.
What do you think people are missing at the moment? Is there anything obvious you think you can see a pattern here? People are just missing something obvious.
Well, the thing we all miss and all get wrong is the 2 things that people have got wrong in property. for the last 500 years, and that is coming on time and on budget. Because, you know, the only time I said this to a bank the other day, and I don't think I should have done actually, although they've already lent me the money, so they can't do much about it. But they said to me, they were talking about, they're quite a big bank, and they were talking, I was on Zoom with them, and they were talking about, you know, the project I've got, which is, you know, 4 months late, which is, you know, we always add at least another 6 months to every project, at least another 6 months, because things just, you know, you either start late, finish late, build lets you down, you know, something goes wrong. And I said, well, to be honest with you, in 40 odd years, I think I've only come in on budget and on time about 5 times. And bear in mind, I bought over 4,000 bought and sold over 4,000 properties. And you can see the guy on the Zoom looking at me, the MD of this company bank, looking at me, going, I don't think that's very good. But I said, look on the bright side. The ones that have come in on time have been the ones which have been very large projects. So, you know, 26 million project, 150 flats in Ipswich. We came in on time, in front of time, and on budget. But that's because you've got a massive company doing it. You've got huge resources. You know, the most organised management system ever, probably. And I spent 840,000 on consultants. So I said, that's how you come in on budget and on time. Do a big project and spend a fortune. And he just laughed.
Seems counterintuitive, but as you say, the more resources that are available, the easier it should go.
Absolutely. You know, to expect a one-man band with his mate who's doing all the work and then being let down by the plasterer and the sparky to come in on budget and on time is probably a bit unrealistic. Yes, it happens sometimes. And we've got one project at the moment which is ahead of schedule. And the builder keeps reminding me he's ahead of schedule. And I think, yeah, at the moment you are. Let's see where you are at the end. But the key is to always add 6 months on to any, and I don't care whether you think it's going to take 9 months or you're going to take a year. I put 6 months on. Yeah. And my contingency. And by the way, here's a quick trick for contingency, because these bloody banks will go on, oh, you've used all your contingency. I always say, no, I haven't used all my contingency. Internally, I have a 20% contingency, not a 10%. They don't know what to say to that.
Right.
So, you know, you can just turn it around a little bit. And I always have 20% contingency on part finished sites, because there's so much that can go wrong, so much you don't know about, and you try and do your due diligence, of course you do, but there's always something that comes up. I mean, at the one at Ladybank in Scotland we've had, I mean, everything's been thrown at us, literally everything, but we've had 5 neighbours come up and say, oh, the last developer said he was going to put the new fence up and he took the fence down and hadn't done it, and he hadn't done the drive. He said he'd do my drive. So you end up doing all these other things to keep everyone happy, because you need everyone to support you in the community to do it. So that's a prime example. We didn't know there was five unhappy neighbours. And that a wall had to be come down and be put back up, which was 50,000 quid because it was leaning, you know, and things like that. So there's always things that come up out the woodwork, especially on part finished difficult sites. Yeah.
And if that's how you've always done it, have you changed what you are doing in terms of contingency, or would you advise, I suppose, people to change what they're doing to be even more risk averse in the current market?
I think you can afford, in this market, you can afford to, in a way, to take less risks, because there's less competition. You know, when the market's hot and there's 4 people chasing a deal, you might have to exchange in a week, less than a week. Whereas in this market, if you're the only buyer, you'll find people are much nicer to you, and also agents will ring you back in this market. They won't ring you back in a hot market. In this market, you're their best friend. So you do find, you know, everyone I'm sure has found that. And you should be working on bigger margins at the moment than you would in a hot market, because a hot market you can sort of predict, well, the market's not going to drop for next year or so, you know, probably. Whereas and if you get the price wrong in a hot market, the inflation, the more you get for it will get you out of it. The extra bunts you get out of a deal in a hot market will probably get you out of it. Whereas in this market, that's the other way around. So you need to work on much bigger margins. You need to be more risk averse. But there's more opportunities. And I don't want to be putting people off, because, you know, I've made more money in and coming out of a property recession than at any other time in my career.
What type of deals do you think suit this market that we're in today? If people are going to go out in the next 3 months to look for a deal, which types of deals? Is it mainly planning gain, or is it bigger developments or smaller developments, new build?
It all depends. What I always say to people, and what annoys me with a lot of the education people get, is that not always, but in some cases, they're being taught by someone that's only ever done one thing. So they push them down that route. And what I say to people, I don't get many, as you know, I don't get many people on my property, my seminars. I don't do many because I'm busy. But the first thing I say is there's lots and lots of ways of making money out of property. You have a massive choice of what you want to do. You can buy and sell lock-up garages if you want to. You know, it's up to you. And the whole point of coming to a seminar, hopefully, is to gain a lot of knowledge, but also decide what you want to do. Because what you thought you might want to do before you came might change by the end of the 2 days or 1 day or whatever. So I think that in a tough market like this one, there's lots of different ways of making, lots of different ways.
Give me a top three.
Sorry?
Give me a top three.
Well, I suppose land becomes very, very cheap in a tough market because you're buying it and that's just the start. That's not halfway through. It's not like a conversion that's really, like you're buying something to refurbish. It's easy to finish. So land becomes super, super cheap. And if you can buy it subject to planning, you really are on a free hit, a free hit. Because if you're clever, you can always get out of it, even if you get planning. So I would say and it really is recession proof as well, in as much that you're making a gain. You're making a gain, that extra gain, because you're going and getting planning. So I think planning is a long one. It bores me to tears. I don't like it, but a lot of people love it. I've got friends who all they do is buy, subject to planning sites all over the place. So if you're into that and you're into detail, brilliant, no problem. The simplest one, of course, is the terrace houses that need doing up and things like that, semis. If you can afford to buy a slightly better house, then you've got less competition. So terrace house, you might have 50 people chasing it. Semi, you might have 30. Detached, you might only have 10 because it's more money and people will perceive the risk being slightly more because, if you're buying a house that's worth 500,000 when it's finished, say, or 400,000 when it's finished, compared to, say, 150,000, the risk of getting the price wrong is more. Yeah. And the variation is more, but you have to be confident about your ability and what you do. So I think that's another one. Obviously, getting more sophisticated, part finish where someone else has taken a hit on the build work, and you're buying at a discount because it needs unraveling and sorting out. That's great, but you do need to know what you're doing, and some banks may not accept you, lend you the money if you're not that experienced on that. If you can get a really good return on HMOs, fantastic. But you've got to bear in mind that the interest you'll be paying is about 7% on the loan. So that's the heat's come out of that because it was 2.5% you're probably paying, and now it's 7.5%. The same, you could argue that, of course, with any investment at the moment. What are two things I find interesting at the moment is that these bridging companies that were very expensive are now about the same price as a normal bank. So they haven't put their interest rates up, really. Touch wood. Perhaps I shouldn't be saying that. So I've borrowed money over the years and still do from Coutts, NatWest, Barclays, Shawbrook. And if I'm borrowing borrowing money to develop a property now, property development this is, not investment, then I'm paying about 12% with them, all in, 12%. Well, I'm not paying virtually any more than that with some of the well-known bridges. Yeah. So, and the bridges, the great thing about the bridges, Coutts take 3 months. They'll invite me for lunch. It's very nice, but they take 3 months. Whereas I can get the money off one or two of the other guys and girls within 10 days. If I'm organised, I'm super organised, then I can do it within 10 days. So, and to do it quickly, quick tip, how do you get money off a bridging company quickly? What do you reckon, Michelle?
No.
The simplest thing you can do. The very simplest thing you can do.
Go on.
Get your valuation done first, yourself.
Oh, okay.
Get your valuation done yourself. Check that they'll accept it before you do it. Get it done yourself. Get it made out to your own name. Yeah. And then
like
then the valuer will charge you a little bit more for putting it in their name, but it's already done, and you're in control of the situation.
great tip. Like it.
Like it?
I do like it a lot. Yeah. Okay. What about the difference
That would speed
between
the whole thing up, because you can say, here's the valuation, here's the cash flow, here's this, here's that, here's that. When you go to a bridger, make sure you give them all the information. You know this, Michelle, I know, but all the information, cash flows, this, that, the other, valuation as well. So, right, it's all there. Can I have the money in 7 days, please? They'll say, no, it'll take 10. Say, okay, 10 days. Boom, do it.
yeah,
And get your solicitor
organised.
Get your solicitor already done the search for you, so they can pass the search across, and all any information tidied up on the title and so on, so there's no queries.
Okay. And what about the difference between working with investors versus working with banks? So you've talked about working with sort of high street lenders, but what about investors?
I'm a bit spoiled, because I don't tend to deal with really. I've never dealt with many investors. I've had over the years a couple of very good backers, and we've owned the companies 50-50. So my partners, really, if anything. With backers, with investors, I should say. I think backers and investors are two different things. So with a backer, they'll probably own it with you, the company with you, and you build the company up between you. The fashionable thing these days, I know, is to have a company, and then once start a new company, once the development's done, get rid of the company, start again. Nothing wrong with that at all. With what I call investors, you have to be, I think, very careful, because they may not be that experienced in property. So you have to hold the hand, very much so. I would always under promise and over deliver. So very important that they have your confidence and they don't lose your confidence during the project. But first of all, they need to gain your confidence. And when I go and speak at these events, I've said this to you before, Michelle, but I speak at some of these events, property clubs and whatever, and they're very, very good. The people who run these clubs up and down the country, I admire them. I mean, they're giving so much good knowledge away, and it's a great networking opportunity. However, what I do, I come away from them, and I might be the main speaker, and I come away feeling depressed, because when I listen to some of the guys, not the ladies, the men, about how well they're doing and what they're doing and how they're doing this and how they're doing that, how much money they're making, I think I'm doing something wrong. However, men like to show off, and the worst thing you can do if you're talking to an investor is show off. Be humble.
Well, yeah, you are the investor. So in this scenario, you invest with people through their projects. So
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So if I'm investing, and I don't do much of it at the moment because I'm busy doing my own stuff. If I'm investing in someone else, and we do, of course, the Property Graduate, where we give $1 million. In fact, the Series 3's going on Sky quite soon, where we give £1 million worth of funding to someone and go 50-50 in a new company with them if they can find a deal within 12 months. The most important thing I'm looking for, two most important things. Well, one is likability. If you don't like the person and they're cocky, arrogant, over exaggerate, and the second thing is if they're over egging and everything. So like, oh well, yeah, we can get 400,000 for that. When you think, well, sounds a lot to me, more like 300. So anybody over egging things. So be humble, be pleasant, be humble. If you want to find a property deal, and you need to engage with lots of people. And if you've got an agent who can deal with 5 different people, why are they going to deal with you? 2 reasons. One, because they like you and you're straightforward and you've got a bit of banter or whatever. And the second thing is you're going to pay them a 2% finder's fee. And we always pay 2% finder's fee to everyone. So anybody that brings us a deal, we pay 2% finder's fee to. So I think likability is so important. And on the property elevator, it's so vital. And you can see, even if the deals aren't that good, some people might go, Nicholas especially, he says yes to everything, by the way. Nicholas Wall is the big tip, by the way. We filmed Series 7, I can't believe, in February. I can't believe, I'm looking forward to it. But what Nicholas is very clever doing, even if the deal isn't good enough, and he knows it's not good enough, he still says, look, this deal's not good enough, but I love to work with you, because he can see something in them.
Yeah.
And
it's
that's
not about
clever.
the deal. It's
It's not
about the
always
person.
about that
Yeah.
deal. It's all about making contact and actually having another deal. And you might go, well, actually, I've got this other one I'm working on. Or 2 months later, you say, well, yeah, I've got, and you've got contact. So you can ring them up, say, yeah, ring me up, whatever, and say, got this deal. Come on, don't be a wet weekend. Get on and let's do a deal. So yeah, so likability is so important, because if you don't like the person, even if the deal's good, you think he or she's gonna be a pain in the ass all the way through. You don't want that. You don't want that.
And are you looking for anything in particular, given the current market, in people when they're presenting their deals?
I don't think you want to be in this deal. You don't want to be in anything too long in this market, unless, of course, you decide that within 2 years things are going to look a lot better. Because in most of these deals are going to take 2 years. If you buy a property without planning permission, you get plan. I mean a bigger scheme. I don't mean a house. I mean perhaps 10 flats you'd perhaps converting, say. Then by the time you bought it, got planning permission, started it, finished it, sold it, at least 2 years, maybe 3. So you have to look at the market and look at what's happening to the economy and go, where are we going to be in 2 years' time? Because if you think you're going to be in a good place in 2 years' time, you need to fill your boots now. If you
Where
think
do
the
you think we're
market
going to be?
will go down more, well, I think the market's going to go down a bit more. Yeah, I think
And
next
then,
year's going to be super tough. And one of the reasons it's going to be super tough is there's going to be a general election. And when there's a general election, the market is always dreadful. And the reason it's dreadful is because people use it as an excuse not to do anything. So you get this, everything is stagnant. And if you've got a couple who are looking to buy, one's keener to buy than the other, then say, well, we better wait till after the election to see who wins. Well, one, we think Labour are going to win, and I'm a past chairman of the Conservative Party, so association. So we think we're going to lose, and secondly, it's likely to be at the end of the year, the election. I spoke to a minister at the conference who said there won't be another conference before the next election. The conference is always October. So she thought September. But for me, the way things are going with Israel and everything else, I can see it being pushed back further. They don't like having an election in the winter because knocking on doors, it's dark. But they might even go to January if they're really desperate. If they're really desperate. But the other thing is, I thought November would be good, but the American elections are in November and they never clash. So if Russia can get the inflation rate down to 3% or less, he'll go in May before the boats start coming across again with the local elections, because the local elections could be a disaster.
Right, so you think it'd be the market recovering in 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, I think I would say, because once Labour get in, if Labour get in at the end of next year, there's going to be a bit of turmoil, before they start throwing things around. They're going to get tougher on landlords, tougher on property developers. And when they say, by the way, they're going to build 1.5 million houses, that's not houses that's social houses mostly. Don't forget that. It will create a boom in the building industry, but they're not building them for, they're going to be tough on developers and tough on landlords, without question. They don't believe anyone should have more than one house. So good luck to all your listeners.
Well, go on then. Let's end on a positive. Give us 1 or 2 things that people, given everything that we've talked about today, do they just sit home and wait, or do you think, still carry on?
Well, that's very interesting, because over the years, in the last 2 or 3 property recessions, I've always jumped too soon. So when I think things are going down, I think, oh, we're in a recession, or the market's going down. Great, and I've got busy too soon. And in 1990, I would have been far better, 92, sorry. I've been far better in 1992 to do nothing for 18 months. Nothing for 18 months than I was running around trying to buy and sell. And when the market's dropping, and it dropped 25-30%, and I don't see it dropping 25-30% here. I think it's just going to bobble along the bottom a bit. And don't forget, it's a micro market, Michelle. So there's areas where the market won't go down, and there's areas where the market will go down more. So this is an average. I think it's gone down 10-15%. I've got 6 estate agencies in Norfolk I own. finer country offices, upmarket offices. So we sell nice property, and 70% of our buyers are cash buyers, and they're still, but they don't worry too much. I mean, there's less transactions, but people are still buying. They're still buying. Yeah. So I would say, don't be in a rush. Don't be in a rush. If there's a really good deal, then take it, of course. You've always got to be looking. And what really annoys me is people I've dealt with for 20, 30 years ring me and they go, are you buying at the moment, John? I've been buying for the last 43 years. I've never stopped buying. I tell everyone I'm always buying, because you don't know what the opportunity is going to be. So why would you say to someone, no, I'm not buying? Madness. Of course you're buying. The shop's always open. Whether it's Boxing Day, Christmas Day, New Year's Day, I don't care what day it is. It's always open. Oh, I'm going on holiday for a month, so I won't be contacting them. I don't think so. I'm always available. And if there's a deal there to be done, someone's got to do it.
So great. Well, that sounds like a great place to wrap up. Tell us what are you up to over the next, with the Sky TV and Property Elevator and Graduates, what's going on?
Yeah, so I've got a 2-day seminar, 13th, 14th of November. It's the first one I'm doing this year, in Canary Wharf. We've got the Property Graduate coming out mid-November, 5 episodes of series 3, which is fun. I think one lady seemed to think I was she stormed out. I think she thought I was being a bit rude to her, which I just said, we're not putting you through. I didn't, I wasn't like, but anyway, she stormed off, so she hasn't spoken to me since. So I'm a bit disappointed at that, because everyone needs to take it in a good spirit, really. Anyway, she obviously didn't. So that'll be good to see on telly. See her face, not good. She's not very happy. So we got that. We've got series, which I can't believe. We've got series 7, I said, a Property Elevator being filmed in February. We've got our property conference elevator conference that we were going to have in November. We're now having that at the very end of January, and it's going to be all about what's going to happen next year to the property market, what are the opportunities, and all the rest of it. So that should be good fun. And I'm quite busy speaking in November, different places. Not so much. December quiets down, doesn't it? But by the way, December's a great time to find a bargain, because everyone else has given up.
True. Lots of great tips today, John. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Great to see you again.
And we'll book in for next year. See where we're up to then.
See if we got it right, shall we?
An annual. Right, guys. Thank you so much for listening, as always. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode. If you're not yet a subscriber to the magazine, click the link in the show notes for your free 30-day trial, and we'll see you next time.